So we're gonna make a start. So just for folks that don't know us, my name is Frederick. I'm based in Brisbane, Australia. I'm one of the leads in Viz For Social Good. So for people that never participated in any of our projects, we basically a group of volunteers that basically love visualizing data that we get from non-for-profit or social enterprise. So basically we run projects. So the charity would come to us with their data, and then we run a 4 weeks project, and then we visualize their information. So before you ask, we tool agnostic. So you can use any tools, any database tools from Tableau, Power BI, Lego, Play-Doh if you want, and draw drawings or videos. We all levels from very beginners to experts. So if you're beginning, don't be scared. We've got a very good supporting network. We've got a very good Slack channel where you can ask questions, and folks a bit more advanced can just answer your questions. So it's a very good platform to get started as well. We often get a lot of university students that just join the project for experience as well, and obviously work with a real data set. I don't have slides because I think the format of the kickoff is very simple. It's really for Damien and Simon from Notion to basically explain who they are, what they do, the type of work they do, also show us or explain us their data set and their challenges. And they're basically here to listen to them. And if you're keen, you can join the project that's starting basically today. And towards the end, we'll have a QA. So the data is now live on our website, and I can share the link. So maybe someone from Viz For Social Good can share the project page on the chat. And Simon and Damien can answer those questions. If they can't, we can put those questions in the Slack channel, and I can show you the pages. But that's basically it. So I'm going to let Damien or Simon or both introduce themselves quickly, and the show starts. Welcome, Damien and Simon.
It's so amazing to see so many people. I still kind of pinch myself a little bit, still after sort of, what, 4 or 5 years of properly using Zoom. But to be able to pull together this many people from, this diversity of geography around the world, I just think it's amazing still. I just every now and then I go, oh my God, that's fantastic. My name's Simon. I am the founder and CEO of Noise Solution, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Before that, I'm also going to let Damien introduce himself, and then he'll hand back, and then I will give you an introduction of the work that we're doing, and then Damien's going to take over and talk a little bit more about the data set. I shouldn't imagine it's going to take an hour, so there will be plenty of space for questions, and we are always very, very happy to answer any questions any of you might have at any point in the project. So just to put that out clearly first. So Damien, if you just want to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, so hi everyone, Damien, Operations Director for Noise Solution. Been with the organisation 7 years, 8 years, something like that, but with a 25-year career in the third sector across a whole variety of domains.
Excellent, thank you very much. So I'm going to start sharing the screen. So Noise Solution has been around for 15 years now. My background was working in sort of youth services in the UK. So working with young people in what we call really, really challenging circumstances. So kids who might be sort of on a trajectory to jail or coming out of jail or homeless or having mental health problems, all sorts of different challenges. And I found that a lot of that work was really amazing, but there were also some considerable problems with it, in the fact that the way that lots of services, whether it was schools or mental health teams or social work teams, lots of the ways that they worked with young people were very prescriptive and very much about the problems in that young person's life. But what actually worked much more efficiently when I was trying to engage those young people was to create a space where they could discover they were good at something. and where they could create a new identity for themselves, where they were suddenly successful at something rather than being thought of as a problem all the time. As it happens, I also had a career as a professional musician as well, with a real interest in music technology. And it seemed to me a very obvious thing 15 years ago to bring those two things together, to use music technology as a way to engage young people that maybe other adults and services were really struggling to engage, because most, not all, but most young people certainly have an interest in music, and music technology is it's kind of fun, essentially. So what's developed over the last 15 years is a mentoring program where we work one-to-one with young people and help them create whatever music that they want. So we make a lot of hip hop and drum and bass and grime, drill music, you name it, whatever they're into. That's what they do with a professional music producer over a set period of time. We've received quite a lot of external validation for that work, lots of recognition. As you can see, lots of awards, both nationally and internationally, for that work, which has been great. And we are one of the UK's top 100 social enterprises in the NatWest Social Enterprise Index, and have been for the last 7 years. One of the reasons that we receive this amount of validation is because we've always been really, really, really interested in data and demonstrating the outcomes of the work that we do. And you'll see what we've done to help us do that from a technology perspective in a minute. And at a kind of higher level, when we think about Noise Solution, this is the kind of grand mission statement. This is it. This is the thing that we're trying to do. Contribute to a world where everyone means something and that they know it. And for us, that involves this mentoring process being combined with technology to enable both of these things to happen, for the young person to feel that they mean something and for them to know it. That takes sort of relationships, and it takes technology. At the heart of the success of every intervention working with humanity is the power of relationships. So this is true in all of the academic literature, whether you are looking at education interventions or mental health interventions or mentoring interventions. All of them, all of the evidence tells us very, very clearly that relationships are absolutely at the core of making something successful. So this is a very, very important point for us in terms of how we work. And we're using the ability to build relationships through music to work with some of those who feel they are furthest from meaning something in society. So the young people that we work with are young people, again, facing challenges around mental health, being excluded from school, involved with youth justice services. That's the sort of cohort of young people that we work with. In terms of what it actually looks like, so sessions, as I say, are one-to-one and often revolve around music technology. A sort of session might look something like this, for example. So we might go to a young person's home and we'll take a laptop and we'll ask the question, what do you want to make? What kind of music do you want to make? And then the musician's job is to help them as quickly as possible feel that they're successful at making that type of music. So we don't go in with any plans about what we're going to make with the young person. It's not prescriptive. There's no curriculum. It's a reaction to whatever that young person's interests are, because what we actually want to do is build a relationship. The music isn't the primary thing. It is for the young person. But for us, the primary thing is the relationship as they go on a discovery journey, making whatever the music is that they want to make. What we also do, though, is we've basically built within our own platform using Salesforce is our own social media-esque platform. So every young person that we work with has a digital feed where they can capture using video or text, photos, audio, like any other social media feed. They can capture what happens within those individual sessions, and they do that from within the session. So they're capturing the highlights of each session in the session, posting it. But what we can do, because it acts as a social media feed, is that we can invite into that feed for each individual their family or their mental health worker or their social worker. So everybody gets to see what's happening in the set of sessions and comment and contribute to it as well. And there are a whole bunch of reasons that we do that. Primarily, the main reason is that what we're trying to do is mirror back at that young person, mirror to them that they are being successful at something, when the rest of the world is often telling them that they are making poor choices and they're struggling and they should be doing different things. What we're trying to do is show them that they are being successful at something, role modeling success back at them. What we're also doing, though, is projecting that onto the screens of these other people. So these other people, important in that young person's life, see this person as succeeding at something and not just as a problem to be solved. Okay. And the outcomes are quite extraordinary. So I'm just going to play you a little bit of feedback. One of the things that happens at the end of every session that we do, and we're doing something like 500 hours of sessions a month at the moment, but at the end of every session, the musician that's working with them will have a conversation talking to the young person like this, where they talk about how the session has been, how it's made them feel. And I'm just going to sort of give you a feel for what that might look like.
So I asked you how you feel after everything that's gone on over the last 2 weeks.
Well, to put it long story short, I've gone from having the worst 2 weeks I've ever had in my life with my mental health, managed to somehow keep my head above water and not do anything stupid, not break anything. But I feel like it was worth it, because at the end of all of that pain and tears and anger and all them emotions comes this little bit of music that I made. And that makes me happy in itself, because I've progressively done something that is making me happy. And when in times of like, I don't have motivation to do this, open my laptop, as soon as I start doing it, the motivation is instantly there. So for me, I feel like I probably should have opened my laptop sooner in these last 2 weeks.
I think you had a few things to think about, though. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, quite
Yeah?
a lot.
Okay,
But-
can we do a reload so that everyone can hear this amazing piece of music that you made?
You get the idea. But it's about validation for that young person that they can be good at something. But this isn't all of this stuff that I've talked about. We're not kind of just making up what we're doing because we think it might be useful for a young person that we're working with. A lot of this work is based on a lot of academic literature. So I was fortunate enough to be invited to do a 2-year research master's at the education faculty in Cambridge, at the Cambridge University, with Professor Pam Bernard as my supervisor, where we looked at what we have to do to best engage young people, how we measure outcomes, and how we do it transparently and realistically. These kind of sort of the lens that we use to understand the work that we do is something called self-determination theory, and self-determination theory is arguably the world's most well-evidenced framework for understanding engagement and motivation and well-being. It's had something like 1.8 million citations. Dr. Ryan, who developed the psychologist who's developed this piece of work or co-developed it, is literally the world's most cited psychologist. And essentially what they're saying, with 1.8 million citations and many international studies, is that if you want to have impact on motivation and well-being, which is pertinent to all of us, right? Whatever you're doing, you need to create spaces where people experience a sense of control, where they are able to feel autonomy, to be done with and not done at. And people also need to be able to experience a sense of competence, to not be made to feel incompetent, and to feel that they are good at something, that they have something to contribute. So we can do that, for example, by setting achievable goals that they might be able to reach. And we use music technology to do that. And we use autonomy within the relationship with the musician to achieve that sense of control for the young person as well. The relatedness is the sort of third basic psychological need that needs to be encouraged. And essentially we achieve that both through the relationship with the musician and the young person, but also through this digital community around the young person as well. So that they experience that moment where they feel seen by other people as they comment on the digital feed as well, and gain encouragement through it. Now, that digital feed is a beautiful place to collect qualitative data. Wonderful. We are, as it happens, doing a whole bunch of work around analysing that qualitative data. But that's not what we're going to be talking about for this project. It may be a separate project. But honestly, we are, as I said, we're doing 500 hours of that delivery a month. We're collecting all of that beautiful qualitative data as conversation. And we've basically, built an engine, which means we can use generative AI to analyze that data. So fast forward maybe 6 months, we might have another whole heap of beautiful data for you to play with, which will be amazing. But what we're talking about for this session is quantitative data, numbers data. And what we've built into a tab of every young person's digital story is the ability to collect well-being data using a scale developed by the UK's National Health Service, the NHS. So this is a 7-item scale. So it asks 7 questions. Those questions are related to the things that we know are important to well-being. So that's generally a sense of competence, but also a sense of how well we're doing in a sort of wider societal measure. So how well we're doing at home or at school, or as I say, more widely. So it asks 7 questions about those sorts of things. And we ask that scale, ask those questions at the beginning of a set of sessions and at the end of a set of sessions. So that might be over 20 hours essentially or more. So we have journey traveled. We have a subjective well-being level at the start of a set of sessions and a subjective well-being level at the end. What's really useful about this particular scale that we use is that academically it's robust, and also it's been used in the UK at huge scale. So we can benchmark our results, which we can produce automatically. We can benchmark them against sample sizes of about 30,000 responses to the same scale. So we have averages of age, gender, contract, whatever it might be. We have all of these averages, benchmarks, that we can automatically compare our data against. And we can visualize that as well, which is amazing. We've currently got about 400 sets of start and end data at the moment, which is the data that we're going to give you. But that's the piece that Damien's going to talk about in more detail. Essentially, that is the process for us. It's a mentoring program where we are getting quite astonishing results in terms of the well-being data and what it's telling us. So, for example, I can tell you that we have halved low levels of well-being for the last 400 young people that we've worked with. We also have done, and this is something I'm going to make available to you all as well, we've also done a huge piece of work with an organization called Costello Medical, who are a private firm who've done a year's worth of analysis on what the financial implications are of the well-being improvements that we've made, and they estimate, at a conservative estimate, that we are saving services around about £6 million every 2 years, or yeah, £3 million a year, through changing the trajectories of the young people that we work with. So steering them away from mental health services or steering them back into education. The work that we're doing is having, £3 million worth of impact, as well as having, transformational impact for those young people themselves and their families as well. As part of that Costello social return on investment data, there was actually quite an interesting piece of work done purely with the Warwick and Edinburgh wellbeing data as well, which I think, Damien, it would probably be a good idea to share as well at some point, which will give a lead on sort of some of the things that you might want to pick out in terms of how we visualize the data or what messages we want to pull out of the data. Damien, do you want to take over from there?
I do. Before you disappear your slides, have you got a copy of the SwimWeb's questionnaire on one of those slides? It might help people to make more sense of the start.
I haven't, but just give me a second and I will get one. If you start talking, I'll find it.
Yeah.
And Damien, do you want to repeat some of the questions in the chat, just in case people haven't seen them? Like Max has got a question, and there was Sachin as well, had a question. You were answering them, but maybe if you repeat them as well, for the benefit of the group.
So one of the questions was around where these young people come from.
Yeah.
So they're referred to us from governmental organizations, essentially. So education, social services, health services, youth justice services. So we sit on a bunch of government contracts and frameworks and stuff where people are referred through. But for the most part, 99% or so of the young people that come to us have been referred to us. They haven't self-referred, they haven't self-elected. I think if cost wasn't an issue, then lots more young people would self-refer. But to give you some idea of cost, for a standard 20-week one-to-one intervention, it's about £2,200 or something. So it's something that young people probably couldn't afford themselves, hence the need to have to come through a statutory route. And then Mark was asking something about getting data at a more granular level. Whilst I was looking for that, Mark, I don't know whether you want to explain what you mean a bit further, and then I can tell you whether we can provide that or not.
Sure, happy to. It was around the survey data. So within the data set, you have the starting score and the ending score aggregated, basically summed up. And I was immediately curious about the 7 questions to see the start and end at that granular level rather than at the aggregated level.
Okay, yeah, I see. Yes, we can provide that. Yes, we can provide that, and I will provide you some guidance around what each of those questions are kind of aiming at, and what we can infer from the individual answers as well as the aggregated answers. But yes, we can definitely provide that.
So I'm struggling to find one. Hang on a minute.
So Damien, would that be a different data set, or would that be the same? Like you end up with the same numbers at the end? Just I'm conscious. Yeah.
We'll look at the data set in a minute. So the start and end scores will be the same. I think what Mark's asking for is, once we've got the SwimWeb's thing in front of you, we'll be able to explain. But essentially, it's a 7-item scale, 7 questions. It's a Likert scale, 1 to 5. We attribute a number to each of those answers and then sum those scores.
So people can use either. They can use the aggregated or the more detailed, like the one that Mark wants.
Yeah. Let me crack on, and then we can come back to it afterwards.
Yeah, if you come back to me, I'll find a useful version.
And Krumal, I'll answer your question after about the project or individual. Keep on asking those questions in the chat, and I'll go back after.
Sorry, Zoom has an issue with Keynote. Are you seeing that? I'm getting a weird.
I'm seeing the data set, but it's kind of a bit grayed out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why it's doing that. So as Simon said, we're a technically literate organization. Right, let's go again. Okay. You should be able to see that now. So in terms of the data, you've all seen, I presume, the data set. If not, the data set is available on the project page. Very straightforward Excel spreadsheet. The bit that Mark was asking about was the makeup of these start scores and end scores. So I will produce a kind of extended report that's got the questions and the scores for each of the 7 items here and each of the 7 items here, and then you can use the summed score, or you can look at the individual scores and see what you can make of that. But essentially, it's quite a straightforward data set. The UIN number, unique identifier number, is a number that we provide for every young person. Randomized number gets applied to them. It means we can start to share data like this anonymously. So it's your kind of it's your key. It's the number that will tie everything together. It's your unique identifier. The SwemWeb start age number is the age that the young person was when they completed the start questionnaire. Obviously, as the data set gets older, the automatically calculated age on their record will continue to increase. But the start age is the age that they were when they completed the start questionnaire. So the age that they were when they essentially undertook the SwemWeb's analysis. SwemWeb's, by the way, stands for Shortened Warwick Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Scale. SwemWeb's it's the scale that Si was talking about. Gender is the young person's gender as generally described by the person that's referred the young person. It's quite an incomplete data set. We're about to change the way that we do some stuff so that the young person can identify their own gender and identify their own ethnicity, but it's not live yet, so it's not as part of this data set. So it's there is data in it. It may or may not be useful. Postcode, for those of you that aren't in the UK, postcode is the UK equivalent of a US zip code, for example. Postcodes in the UK are split into 2 parts. You've got the first part of the young person's postcode, which shows a broad postcode area. If I give you the second part as well, it starts narrowing down into streets and street numbers, and then we start to get into identifiable data and stuff. So the postcode area is enough. What area of the UK or what area of Suffolk or Cambridgeshire is that young person located in? The industry is the domain of the organization that's referred the young person. So whether they've come from an education service, a mental health service, social services, any of those kinds of things, where has that referral come from? Who has referred that young person to us? The SwemWeb start score and the SwemWeb's end score, we've discussed. 7 questions. Each question has 5 possible answers. Each of those answers is attributed a score, and these start scores and end scores are then the summations of those. I will provide you with the individual questions and the individual scores as well, so you can have a look at those. Now, because the digital story element that Simon was talking about is an integral part of what we do, this kind of social media-esque feed. I've supplied you with, where we have it, the number of comments that a young person has received on the videos and the music that they've uploaded. The same with the number of likes. It's important to note here that we need to be careful about aggregating those numbers by number of posts. So a young person could have only made 2 posts and had 1 comment, and a young person could have made 20 posts and still had 1 comment. So there needs to be some kind of understanding around the number of posts they've made, the number of comments and likes they've made. And then the number of external members is the number of people that that young person has invited into their group. So that excludes internal staff, that excludes me, that excludes Simon, other people. It's basically the number of family and professionals that have been invited into that group. So is it the case then that if a young person has a high number of external people in their group, and those people have made a high number of likes and comments, does that impact their well-being score, for example? Does more people commenting more make people feel better? I don't know. We can have a look at that. So that's why I've kind of put that stuff in there as well. Frederick, should we pause there? I obviously didn't keep an eye on the questions in the chat, and whether there are questions on the data itself.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, so maybe it might be worth whether people come off mic and then ask the questions, because there's a bunch of them that are quite interesting, so it will be worth finding them. Just having, I think someone has been busy as well answering them, so just checking if there's any question that haven't been answered yet, or whoever's asked the questions, data-related questions. Mark?
I think a lot of questions are related to our process and project.
Yeah, which is good. Mark had a question about IDs. There's 2 IDs that 2 different starting age. Was this unanswered? Within the data, there are IDs that have 2 different starting ages. Did they go through the program twice? I guess
that would be the case, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just scanning some Vanita if you see other questions that haven't been answered.
It's also worth saying that Si and I are both available on the Slack channel as well, if there's any to go along. I don't know whether they'd explain that later, but we're still
that's good.
Available during the project.
The recording would be made available on our Slack, on our project page, and obviously you can tag Simon and Damien on our Slack. That's why it's probably join the Slack channel, and then if there's a lot of questions, we can even do like a QA doc. So all those questions and answers are in the same spot. But any questions? Do you have more content, Damien, to go through the
yeah, I've got another slide.
You go, Simon?
There was a question from... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so referring to the start score and end score, so how many questions fall in the start of the questionnaire and how many questions fall in the end of the questionnaire?
It's the same questionnaire asked twice. So the same questions are asked at the beginning as are asked at the end, and it's the difference in the scores that gives you an understanding of any subjective change in that young person's well-being.
Okay, so okay, then what's the difference between the start score and end score if there are the same questions?
Well, because the questions it's a subjective feeling about, you know, how in control are you feeling, or you know, how listened to do you feel? You know, it's those kinds of questions within the questionnaire. So that if we do our job well and we create a space where that young person feels in control and listened to and, you know, competent at something, the score should go up by the end. And that's the idea, and that's generally what we see. So for those of you who are statisticians, we see a statistical significance in positive change of p.0001 over those 400 sets of data. So yeah, it's a statistical probability that those scores will improve.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Cool. And there was a question from Gina as well. Question about the
Hi.
national SWEMWeb scores. The data sheet that is available is from 2011 and for all 14 survey questions. Is there a more recent one? I mean, it's the SWEMWeb's questionnaire developed by the NHS. The questions haven't changed, so the survey doesn't change. We use the shortened version of that scale because it's academically validated to be more accurate,
Yeah.
essentially, and easier to deliver.
The question that I had though was in the website there was some description about comparing scores from young people who finished the program to the national averages, and I think that sheet was from 2011 and was for 14 questions. Is there something similar? Does the NHS have something similar for 7 questions that's more recent?
I think we haven't got anything post-pandemic. I don't think. Was it 2011? I thought it was a bit later than that.
Pretty sure it was 2011. But
I mean, I know it's out of date, but we're kind of at the mercy of academics.
yeah, I figured.
To update it, unfortunately, and they tend to not rush papers out very quickly.
Unless anybody wants to write an up-to-date paper in the next 4 weeks, of course, that'd be fine. We'd be happy with that.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's a ballpark figure, right? It's a way of us demonstrating a movement, that there is a steer in terms of we're taking this whole population and we're seeing an improvement, and here's a benchmark. But you're right, it's not the most up to date.
Right. I do have one more question. Is there any information about how long it took for people to do the program, or when they did it, like the date they start? Was it pre-pandemic, post, during?
Both. It would be a mixture, I would imagine.
Do we have any date information for each participant?
Yeah, I can supply those data as well.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's no problem.
There were a couple of questions from Sarah and Tammy in the chat as well. They look pretty interesting as well for you, Damien and Simon. Unique IDs for referring organizations. Towards the end of the chat.
The unique organization ID is an interesting one. We don't generate unique IDs for the organization because we had no need to, but I can see where the need might come from. So you can leave that with me, is what I'm saying, and I will see what I can do. It's an interesting question. Who pays for the cost of the sessions? The state, effectively, whether it's a school or a mental health service or whoever. Generally not the young person themselves.
The time frame in terms of the questionnaires, the point at which the questionnaires are asked, is the start questionnaire is asked as soon as possible, so within the first session, within the first hour or two, ideally right at the beginning, and the second questionnaire is asked between week 8 and week 10, so yeah, between 18 and 20 hours later, over a 3-month process. We tend to work with somebody about 2 hours a week.
Which explains why the start age has been noted, but the end age hasn't. It's because there's generally a relatively short period of time between the two. So generally it's about 10 weeks. So the age wouldn't have changed that much between start and end. So there was no need for us to capture the end age. Data on the genre of music created by each participant, no. No. And the genre of music that people create can change during the session, between sessions, from the start to the end. And actually, it's not the genre of music that people create that's important, according to our theory of change. It's how we do that, not what we do, that's the important thing. Okay, so in terms of what we're looking for, we're looking for kind of interesting things, really. And we are very, very open-minded about what you do with those data. I think the overarching reason why we reached out to Frederick and Viz For Social Good is because we are pretty good at gathering the data and pretty good at connecting those data together, awful at telling the story of those data in kind of interesting, engaging ways. So we're really, really interested to see what comes out. I think we are looking for the visualizations to be informally serious. I think we settled on. Si and I discussed this quite a bit yesterday. And we're an organization that likes to be straightforward. We're an organization that uses the phrase, not all professionals wear suits. It doesn't mean that we aren't professional, but it means that we're not the NHS, we're not the government, we're not producing those kinds of data sets. We want it to be interesting and engaging and easy to understand, without any of the kind of smoke and mirrors sometimes that gets in the way of people being able to understand what it means. It would be really, really cool if there was an ability for people to be able to play with the data. So if people wanted to be able to see the data for young women in Cambridgeshire aged between 14 and 21, or young people referred from education services, or young men referred from education services, or any of those kinds of things. That's something that we haven't been able to do easily within Salesforce, is that kind of cross-filtering, being able to play with data and come out with interesting insights. And as I said, we are really interested to bring the story of those data to life. So you saw the video with one of our young people and their musicians saying, I was going to smash stuff up and then I made some beepy noises and I'm glad I did and I've come out the other side. You know, those data will reflect that, and we need to be able to use those data to tell a story in the way that people understand. And we're all about being creative and kind of using creative ways to present the data back to people. We would be interested, depending on how far this goes down the line, to publish these data somewhere. If we are publishing these data somewhere, it would be cool if that could tie in with our brand. I can give you a brand guide, colors, fonts, all that kind of stuff, which might be interesting anyway in terms of the informally serious bit. But Frederick, I'll get that over to you and we can get it posted somewhere or other. But I think the overarching message is we're not looking for anything particular. Like, these are some kind of handrails, these are some guide rails, but play with the data, you know, see what it tells you. Let's play with it and get some interesting stuff out the other end.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to be surprised.
I'm sure we can be surprising. Is there more, other than project questions? I'm going to go through the project page in a minute, but do we have any more data-related questions? If not, don't worry, we've got Slack as well. So looks like the Slack invite link has failed again. If you can't join Slack, send me your email, I can send you the invite. But otherwise, I'll show you the project page, so especially for the new starters, the beginners that never done a project with us. But as I said, Simon and Damien will be on call on Slack and they can answer those questions. And we can maybe put together FAQ or QA and summarize all those questions for the group as well. Any more questions? Simon and Damien, have you seen in Slack, in a chat that was?
Yeah, I've been trying to get through them.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm gonna, in interest of time, I'm gonna share my screen and show you the project page. I think Adrian did share the project page before. So the idea is, obviously you go to vizforsocialgood.com. In there, you go to the project page here. On that page, you obviously see the current project, but you also see the previous project. The reason why I'm showing you those is it might be interesting for you to click on the previous page. And for example, this one was done in May. And maybe take a look at some databases that were created by some volunteers. It might give you an idea of what volunteers create. Something I've said before early on, we're tool agnostic, so you can use any database tools you want, from Tableau, Power BI, Play-Doh. There's a lot of Figma as well. So the tool you use is really up to you. Your creativity is what matters. And the concept is pretty simple. I won't go through the top bit because that's basically what Simon and Damien explained, who they are and so on. But when you're on the page, this is a link to the Excel file. And I'm going to stick also the style guide, and then I think Simon just sent me the questionnaire as well. So all the documents.
I can send you some of the SROI investigation
Oh,
on
cool.
the WebWebs data as well.
Yeah.
I think I'll put it in an email to you.
So the file will be there. So what I'll do, looks like Damien might be busy sending us maybe a new version of the dataset. I might just update and put it on top of this one, so there'll be one single Excel file. But basically, you click on the download, you download the file onto your computer. Just for the very, very, very beginners, and then that's your dataset there. And then you might have different tabs, for example, and that's it. That's your data you can use to visualize information. And as I said, any tools you want, it's really up to you to decide. So the data is there. So that's your data set, saved to your local computer. What I want to reinforce are the key important dates. Obviously, today is a kickoff. We are allowing 3 weeks and a bit, 4 weeks roughly, a deadline of the 6th of September for you to work on your project. I've saw a question on the chat whether you do it on your own or as a team. It's really up to you. Most of volunteers do it on their own, but if you have buddies, if you university buddies or a group of students and you want to work as a team, set up a team, but that's really up to you. You decide. There's no requirement to have that as a team or individual. Up to you. So you download the data, you do your analysis, you do your visuals, you create fun stories, interesting visuals. We want to capture them. So there's a submission form here, which is basically a Google form. Obviously, you put your email, so we know who you are, where you're from. There's a few questions there. I saw a question online whether we need to have the visual or the story published online. As an example, if you want to do a work using Tableau and use Tableau Public or Power BI Gallery or even GitHub, you put the link in there, link to your submission. So obviously, Damien and Simon can actually check it out. And there's other bits and pieces there, like how many hours you spent. But basically, we want to make sure that you capture your submission. And then we'll have a live presentation on the September 12th. What's important to note is for every project we run, we usually have between 30 and 50 or sometimes 60 submissions. We can't get all together in a live session because that would take hours for, let's say, 5 minutes each. So we're going to be asking Damien and Simon to select their favorite 5 projects. So we'll have a bunch of submissions, as I said, maybe 50 or 60, and then Damien and Simon will select their favorite 5 projects based on their requirement. So we're not scoring them. Damien and Simon would select them based on how beautiful they are or informative they are. They've got their own scoring requirements. And I'm going to invite those 5 to basically present at the live event using Zoom as well, same thing on the 12th of September. Everybody is welcome to join as well. So not only the people have been selected, but I just want to reinforce there's not a competition. So there's no winners or losers. It's really for us to help no solution, for us to get some exposure with maybe a data set we're not used to with, for example, because it's not our industry. But yeah, don't forget to submit your Viz or your dashboards. Also, feel free to submit it to your social media profiles, Twitter or X, LinkedIn. I'm sure you can tag us, Viz For Social Good. You can tag No Solution. I think they've got a Twitter presence and LinkedIn presence. So promote yourself as well in the same time. Be proud of your work. Even you might be a beginner, you might be just starting up. Be proud of your work because that can help also Simon and Damien. If you come up with only one chart, for example, that chart might be beautiful.
Just to underscore from our perspective, this is actually genuinely impactful for us as an organization. Our ability to go out to a mental health commissioner or a local government commissioner or a group of schools and say, look, what this data is showing us we're doing means that we get funding, which means that young people have the intervention in their lives, which we know our data tells us is massively impactful for them and their families.
Yeah.
So the better we tell the story, the more outcomes we get for young people. So this work is actually genuinely useful and important for us. So thank you for the time you're about to put in, because it's really appreciated.
Thanks, Simon. The last bit of feedback or information I wanted to share is make sure you include a Viz For Social Good logo on your dashboard. There's a link there. As we said, we've got a Slack channel. So if I share quickly the Slack, if you're not there yet, send me an email and I can add you. But basically, you just go there and just add questions. So you can tag Simon and Damien and say, oh, I don't quite understand that data set or that question. Can you just explain? And then the Slack is probably best because everyone can see the question and answers rather than just email. And I think that's it. I mean, talking about what Simon said, we've just run some math and then we worked out that we've, as a group, roughly contributed to almost 11,000 hours of consulting our group. So I think we tried to, we're proud of the work we do as well, helping charities. And that's almost like equaling to almost $1 million in consulting funds. So we like to hear that kind of feedback, Simon, that we also can help you guys do better work. So I think that's the project page. Keep that in mind, just bookmark it. I'm going to stop sharing, but if you have more questions about the project itself or the data or any other thoughts, we got 5-10 minutes left. So feel free to just jump off the microphone and tell us, ask us.
Thank you,
Can
Frederick.
I just ask before we,
Go
before we
ahead,
disappear, just ask that you can send the chat transcript as well.
Yeah, I do that. I put that in
So
the.
I can pick out all of the bits that
Cool.
you need. Yeah.
No worries.
Sorry, carry on.
Yep. Oh, thanks, Frederick. Hello, Damien and Simon. Apologies, I had technical difficulties joining earlier in the meeting, but thank you so much for this. When I first heard about this charity, I was like very intrigued in the work you do, and I think we've done 40 plus projects in the last 5 years, and this is probably the most creative one that I've seen in terms of how to bring music with youth and mental health. So pretty excited about that. And a lot of what you said about relationships and empowering, I feel like Viz For Social Good is aligned with your values. We too empower our volunteers. Many of our volunteers come to us to learn, but they also want that artistic freedom to work on data visualization. Those in professional settings are having to sort of follow certain ways and templates and all that. So when they come and work on our projects, they just unleash their creativity and their talent and try new things as well. So I just found that connection, and I'm actually interested in that self-determination theory because I think a lot of that would apply to us as well. So I'm going to do some research on that too.
We've been using self-determination theory as this lens to make every decision we make as an organization, whether it's how we engage with our staff or how we engage with families or the young people we work with, or how we design the technology interfaces that we use. And the more the more we've introduced self-determination theory to more people, the more people come back to us later and go, I now use that as a a top level way to assess all sorts of different things in my life. And it's unbelievably well evidenced. It's very rarely used or known about other than in areas of elite sports or high level business process consultancy, which is bizarre, but it's incredibly useful.
No, that's amazing. And as you may know, we're an organization run fully by volunteers. So I do want to thank the team that I see on the call today. So Frederick and Adrian and Valerie, Sarah, some of our ambassadors as well. Everyone just shows up, and that's the incredible thing. Like it's not our day jobs, we're not getting paid, but there's something about what we do and how we serve our volunteers and community and charity that makes us keep coming back. So again, thank you for sharing your data, and we're really looking forward to the next 6 weeks and just seeing what our volunteers are going to do, and I can't wait because every project just gets better and better and better, and it's you'll have a hard time picking your top 5.
I am very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Brilliant.
Elena.
Thank you, Vinitha.
Any more questions? We got a few 2 minutes. I've just pasted the new Slack link. For some reason, the Slack link deactivated itself, even though it was not meant to. But as I said, if you can't join Slack, send me an email. I can send you the link. Zoe is asking, are you looking for a partner? Is that right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I do it for curiosity. I have so many questions. I will take time to look through, but I just want to have a sounding board, someone to annoy with when I have questions.
I'd say the first spot would be to join Slack and then ask the same question in Slack, because you might have other volunteers that might want to jump in as well and give you a hand. Maybe you give it a start and then you find someone in the Slack community, in the project page, that can give you advice or have a
Okay,
talk.
yeah.
And there's no reason why we've done that in the past, where we could have a QA in a couple of weeks as well, like another follow-up session if Damien is up to it, or Simon, another Zoom call quickly. If people have drafts they want to submit, or you can submit your draft on Slack, but if you want to have a live call like we do today, but as a QA call, scream out and we can organize that with Damien and Simon, if you feel it's valuable.
Brilliant.
Nice. If no more questions, Damien and Simon, thanks a lot.
Amazing. Again, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks for all new volunteers, past volunteers, Viz For Social Good board members, and the whole team. It's amazing to see you there. And then see you on Slack or in September online. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. See you soon. Bye.
Hey.
Hello, hang on. I'm just trying to